Before I get into this, I just want to say this is one of those stories I've gone back and forth on even sharing. If you're listening to this late at night, maybe working, maybe driving, maybe lying in bed with the lights off, I'd honestly like to know where you're watching from. And if stories like this are your thing, liking and subscribing really does help more than you think. Now, let me tell you what happened. I was 24 when I first stumbled onto the dark web, and like most people, it wasn't because I was looking for anything illegal or disturbing. I was bored working overnight IT support for a mid sized logistics company, sitting alone in a fluorescent lit office while the rest of the city slept. Night shifts do strange things to your brain. You start clicking links you normally wouldn't. You start wondering what's out there beyond the surface level internet we all pretend is the whole thing. At first, it felt almost disappointing. Forums, black market listings, encrypted chat rooms full of people speaking in half sentences and code. It felt edgy, sure, but not scary. Most of it looked like scams layered on top of scams. Then one night, around 2:30 a.m., I found a forum that didn't look like the rest. No flashy banners, no ads, no marketplace layout. Just plain text threads, each titled with a date and a number. No descriptions, no usernames visible, only anonymous posts. Curiosity got the better of me, and I clicked one. Inside was a single paragraph written in a detached, almost clinical tone. It described a man standing in a convenience store at exactly 11:47 p.m. buying a pack of cigarettes he didn't smoke. It mentioned the cashier's name, the security camera angle, and the exact moment the bell over the door would ring again. The post ended with one line: "If you're watching, you'll see it happen." I checked the date. It was from earlier that evening. I laughed it off at first. Creepy fiction. Some kind of ARG. But then someone replied underneath with a link to a local news site. The article described an armed robbery at a convenience store at 11:48 p.m. A cashier had survived. Everything matched, down to the cigarettes. That's when the chill started creeping in. I clicked another thread. This one described a woman waiting for a bus that would never arrive, standing under a flickering streetlight with a broken cover. It mentioned the smell of rain, the hum of power lines, and the way her phone screen would crack when it hit the pavement. The post ended the same way. If you're watching, you'll see it happen. The replies were worse. Photos, grainy, low resolution images taken from angles no one should have been standing at. One showed the cracked phone on wet concrete. Another showed police tape in the background. I told myself to stop. I closed the browser. I finished my shift. I went home and slept for most of the day. But when I woke up that evening, the forum was all I could think about. The way the posts weren't dramatic. The way they didn't glorify anything. They just observed. I logged back in. That's when I noticed a new thread at the top of the page. The title was just a timestamp. Tonight's date. A time that hadn't happened yet. I shouldn't have clicked it. I know that now. The post was shorter than the others. No poetic details. No build up. Just a description of a man sitting alone in an office building overnight, scrolling through a forum he doesn't understand yet. It mentioned the hum of outdated servers, the burnt coffee in a chipped mug, and the reflection of a second monitor that wasn't turned on. My stomach dropped. I checked my reflection in the dark screen beside me. Nothing unusual. Just me. Tired eyes. Pale skin under fluorescent lights. I scrolled down, hands shaking now, heart beating hard enough that I could feel it in my throat. The last line read, "If you're watching, you'll understand too late." I slammed my laptop shut so hard I nearly cracked the casing. I stood up, pacing the small apartment, checking corners, checking doors, checking windows. I felt ridiculous, but fear doesn't care about logic. Fear only cares about possibility. For the next 2 days, nothing happened. No strange messages. No knocks at the door. I convinced myself it was coincidence. Cold reading. Some hacker playing mind games. Then the messages started. They didn't come through the forum. They came through my work email. Blank subject lines. No sender address. Just a single sentence in the body. Observations. things no one should have known, what I had for lunch, the route I took home, the exact moment I hesitated before crossing the street because a car was going too fast. I stopped sleeping. One night, unable to take it anymore, I replied to one of the emails. I typed a single sentence. What do you want? The response came instantly. We want you to watch. That was when I realized the forum wasn't predicting events. It was orchestrating them. People weren't just victims. They were content. And now somehow I was being invited behind the curtain. A new link appeared in my inbox. No explanation. Just a warning beneath it. Once you open this, you don't get to look away. My cursor hovered over the link for a long time. Every instinct screamed at me to delete the email, shut down my laptop, and pretend none of this had ever happened. Instead, I clicked. And that was when I made the worst decision of my life. I never thought I'd touch the dark web. And if I'm being honest, I didn't even know how until my job forced my hand. I worked overnight security for a private storage facility on the outskirts of town, the kind of place people used to stash things they didn't want traced back to them. Most nights were silent except for the hum of cameras and the occasional raccoon tripping a motion sensor. To pass the time, I started learning about online privacy, encryption, and how to keep myself anonymous. That curiosity led me places I shouldn't have gone. At first, it was harmless research. Articles, forums, guides written by people paranoid enough to make me feel normal. Eventually, someone mentioned a message board only accessible through a specific onion address. They described it as a place where people shared raw footage of reality, whatever that meant. I should have recognized the red flag right there, but boredom makes you reckless, especially at 3 in the morning. The board loaded slowly, line by line, like it didn't want to be seen. The layout was crude, almost intentionally outdated. No avatars, no usernames, just posts labeled with numbers and short titles. Most were locked. A few were open. I clicked one called Night Shift. The post was written by someone claiming to work security, describing the monotony of watching empty hallways through security feeds. It was eerily similar to my own job, down to the brand of cameras and the way the monitors distorted faces under low light. The post ended with a question asking if anyone else ever felt like the cameras were watching back. I felt a chill, but I kept reading replies. Most were one-line responses, vague and unsettling. And then one reply stood out. It listed the exact address of my facility. I stared at the screen, convinced it had to be coincidence. Storage facilities all look the same, I told myself. But then I noticed another detail. The reply mentioned a dented locker door near the south wall, the one I'd hit with a forklift months earlier. No one outside the company knew about that. I shut the browser and checked the camera feeds. Everything looked normal. Empty corridors, locked gates, no movement. I laughed nervously and told myself it was time to log off for the night. The next evening, curiosity dragged me back. The thread had been updated. A new reply appeared beneath the address. It said, "Tonight's the night you'll notice the blind spot." I scanned the camera layout, heart racing. Every feed was accounted for. Then I saw it, a narrow strip between two camera angles near the far storage wing. It wasn't a true blind spot, just an overlap that left a shadowed sliver no camera fully covered. I had never noticed it before. I grabbed my flashlight and did a physical walkthrough, telling myself I was being professional, not scared. The air felt thicker near that corridor, like the building was holding its breath. When I reached the blind spot, my flashlight beam caught something on the concrete floor. Footprints. They were fresh, bare feet, dusty, leading into the shadowed area and stopping abruptly, as if whoever made them had simply vanished. I radioed in, but dispatch didn't respond. Static filled the channel, distorted and rhythmic, almost like breathing. I went back to the office and locked the door. I told myself I'd finish my shift and quit in the morning, but the board wasn't done with me. When I logged back in, a new private message was waiting. It contained a live video feed, no description, just a play button. Against every ounce of common sense I had left, I clicked it. The footage was grainy, black and white, and unmistakably from one of my own security cameras. It showed the corridor near the blind spot, but the timestamp was wrong. It was displaying a time 10 minutes in the future. I watched myself walk into frame, flashlight in hand, replaying what I had already done earlier that night. The footage followed perfectly until the moment I reached the shadowed area. In the video, I stopped moving. I stood there, perfectly still, head tilted slightly as if listening. Then something stepped out of the darkness behind me. The figure was tall, thin, and blurred like the camera couldn't quite agree on its shape. It reached toward me, fingers stretching too long, bending in ways fingers shouldn't bend. The video cut out before it touched me. I slammed the laptop shut and checked the time. The timestamp on the video hadn't happened yet. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely unlock the office door. I told myself I wouldn't go back down that corridor. I'd stay put until morning. That's when the motion alarm triggered. It wasn't near the blind spot. It was right outside the office door. I froze, staring at the monitor. The feed showed the hallway empty, but the motion alert kept pinging over and over as if something invisible was pacing back and forth. The lights flickered, and the hum of the building deepened into a low vibration I could feel in my teeth. Another message popped up on the laptop. Don't look away this time. The office lights went out. In the darkness, I heard footsteps approaching the door, slow and deliberate, stopping just on the other side. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I just stared at the black screen, waiting for something to happen. When the lights finally came back on, the hallway was empty. The motion alert stopped. The board was gone, the onion address returning nothing but an error message. I quit the next morning without explanation. I still check over my shoulder when I walk through parking garages. I still avoid cameras whenever I can. And sometimes when I'm alone at night, I swear I can feel something standing just outside my field of vision, waiting for me to notice it again. Whatever that board was, it didn't just want watchers, it wanted participants. I didn't go looking for the dark web because I was curious. I went looking because someone paid me to. At the time, I was doing freelance digital cleanup work, the kind nobody advertises publicly. Companies, politicians, private individuals, they come to you when they want something erased or buried deep enough that no one stumbles across it by accident. Most of it was boring. Old forum posts, leaked emails, bad photos. But one client changed everything. The email came from a burner address with no identifying info, just a request to locate and remove a series of videos hosted across multiple Onion sites. The subject line read, "Urgent content removal." The pay was triple my usual rate. That alone should have made me say no. I accessed the first link using a clean virtual machine and layered VPNs. The site loaded slowly, like it was resisting. The layout was minimal, black background, white text, no branding. Just a list of video files labeled with timestamps instead of titles. No previews, no descriptions. I hovered over one, hesitating, then clicked. The video opened to a static shot of a small bedroom. No movement at first, just the faint sound of breathing, shallow and uneven. The timestamp in the corner was live, counting upward. I waited, expecting something to happen. After nearly a minute, a figure stepped into frame. A young man, maybe early 20s, eyes darting around the room like a trapped animal. His hands were shaking. He kept whispering the same sentence under his breath, over and over, like a mantra. They said if I stayed quiet, they'd let me go. The video ended abruptly. I sat back, heart pounding, telling myself it was staged, some kind of performance art. But the next video destroyed that hope. Different room, different person, same format, same breathing, same fear. One woman was crying so hard she could barely speak. Another man sat completely still, eyes locked on something just out of frame, refusing to blink. None of the videos showed what they were afraid of. I dug deeper, tracing the hosting nodes, looking for a pattern. Every video originated from a different region, different country, different network. The only thing they shared was the format and the forum embedded beneath each video. The comments weren't mocking or cruel. They were clinical, observational. People discussed posture, breathing rate, eye movement. like scientists analyzing lab animals. One comment caught my eye. Subject 17 responding well to isolation. Introducing auditory stimulus next. I felt sick. I checked the timestamps. The videos weren't old. Some were only hours old. This wasn't archived content. This was ongoing. I contacted the client asking for more details. The response came back fast. Delete everything you can. Do not interact. Do not comment. Do not download. Too late for that. While scanning one of the pages, a new video appeared at the top of the list. No timestamp yet. No comments. Just a blank placeholder that slowly populated. Then the feed went live. It was my workspace. The angle was wrong, slightly elevated, like the camera was mounted near the ceiling behind me. I could see myself at my desk, leaning forward, face lit by the glow of my monitors. I wasn't moving. I was frozen in the exact position I was in at that moment. I spun around in my chair. Nothing. No camera. No red light. No reflection. My phone buzzed with a message from the client. They noticed you. I unplugged everything. Laptop, router, external drives. I shut down the virtual machine, wiped the system, and powered off. The room felt unbearably quiet without the hum of electronics. I told myself that cutting the connection would end it. It didn't. An hour later, there was a knock at my door. I didn't answer. I watched through the peephole as a man stood in the hallway, head tilted slightly, listening. He didn't knock again. He didn't check his phone. He just stood there for a full minute before turning and walking away. When I checked the forum from a public library the next day, the videos were gone. All of them. In their place was a single thread pinned to the top. Experiment concluded. Observer interference noted. Beneath it was a list of numbers. I recognized one immediately. It was the number assigned to my virtual machine. I never got paid for that job. Since then, I've noticed small changes in my life. Strangers holding eye contact a little too long. Unmarked vans parked near my apartment for hours at a time. And sometimes when I'm alone, I feel that same sensation I saw in the videos, the feeling of being watched by something just outside the frame. I don't know what those people were part of. I don't know who was running it or why. All I know is that somewhere out there, people are still watching live feeds, still taking notes, still treating human fear like data. And once they see you watching back, you're no longer just an observer. You're a variable. I used to moderate content for a living, not for any mainstream platform, but for a private firm contracted to clean corners of the internet most people don't even know exist. The work was isolating, anonymous, and intentionally compartmentalized. We weren't told who our clients were, only what to flag, archive, or quietly remove. Most nights, I sat alone in my apartment, headphones on, watching things I'd rather forget, convincing myself that distance made it safer. One night, a flagged link came through marked, "Do not archive." That alone was unusual. Everything gets archived, even the worst of it, especially the worst of it. But this one was different. The instructions were simple. Watch the full video, then report back verbally. No notes, no screenshots. I opened the link. The site had no navigation menu, no branding, nothing clickable except the video player itself. The title was a string of random characters. When I hit play, the screen filled with a dimly lit room. Concrete walls, a single chair bolted to the floor. The camera angle was low, facing the chair like an interrogation setup. For the first few minutes, nothing happened. Then a man entered the frame and sat down. He looked exhausted, eyes sunken, clothes wrinkled and dirty. He stared straight into the camera and took a shaky breath. "If you're seeing this," he said quietly, "they've already found you." My stomach tightened. He went on to explain that the site wasn't hosting random content. It was bait. Anyone who stayed too long, who watched too carefully, who tried to interact or interfere, got flagged. Not by an algorithm, but by people. He said the dark web wasn't just a marketplace or a hiding place. It was a hunting ground. About halfway through the video, something changed. The man stopped talking mid-sentence. His eyes shifted slightly to the side, like someone had just entered the room behind the camera. You said I could finish, he whispered. There was a pause. Then his expression collapsed into pure terror. The audio picked up a sound I can't forget. Slow, deliberate footsteps, heavy but uneven, like whoever was walking had learned to mimic the rhythm rather than naturally possess it. The man stood up abruptly, backing out of frame, begging, his voice cracking. The video cut to black. I sat there long after it ended, staring at my reflection in the dark screen. My headset felt too tight. The room felt too small. I submitted my verbal report as instructed, keeping my voice neutral, professional, detached. The next morning, I received a follow-up message. Continue monitoring. You have been cleared. I should have walked away then. Quit. Disappeared. But there was something about the video that stuck with me. The way he looked directly at the camera, like he knew someone specific would be watching. A week later, I noticed something wrong with my system logs. Files I didn't remember accessing. Timestamps that didn't line up with my work hours. Sessions opened and closed without my input. I ran scans. Nothing showed up. No malware. No intrusion. Then the emails started. No sender. No subject. Just short messages. Still watching. Did you like the ending? We noticed your pause at 3:14. They knew exactly how long I'd watched. I tried contacting my supervisor. The number was disconnected. The firm's website returned a 404. My work portal was gone, as if it had never existed. That night, my webcam turned on by itself. The indicator light glowed softly in the dark room. I hadn't used the camera in months. My hands shook as I covered it with tape, heart hammering in my chest. A new message popped up on my screen. That won't help. The video feed switched views. I wasn't looking at my room anymore. I was looking at myself from behind. I screamed and spun around, but the room was empty. When I looked back at the screen, the feed was gone, just my desktop wallpaper staring back at me. I packed a bag and left that apartment that same night. I stayed with a friend across town, told them I was dealing with a work crisis. I didn't bring my laptop. I didn't bring my phone. It didn't matter. The messages followed me. Public computers, smart TVs, digital billboards that flickered for just a second too long when I walked past. Always short, always calm. You can't unsee it. You were thorough. We appreciate that. Observation is participation. I stopped sleeping. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that chair, that room, that moment when the man realized the rules had changed. I don't know who they are. I don't know how many people are involved. But I know this. The dark web isn't dangerous because of what's hidden there. It's dangerous because of what notices you looking. I always thought the dark web horror stories were exaggerated. I'd heard them on late night podcasts, read them on forums, but they always felt distant, like campfire stories for people who spent too much time online. That changed when my younger brother disappeared. He was 19, socially awkward, and deeply online in a way I didn't fully understand. He spent most of his nights locked in his room, laptop glowing, headphones on, barely sleeping. We weren't that close, but I knew enough to recognize when something was off. About a week before he vanished, he started acting paranoid, asking if I'd noticed unfamiliar cars on our street, asking if our Wi-Fi password had ever been shared. I brushed it off as anxiety. The night he disappeared, his room was exactly how he'd left it. Laptop open. Bed untouched. Phone charging on the desk. No note. No sign of a struggle. The police treated it like a runaway case, which felt like a slap in the face. My brother wasn't impulsive. He was cautious to a fault. While the investigation stalled, I started going through his laptop. I wasn't tech savvy like him, but I knew enough to check browser history. Most of it was wiped clean, but there were remnants, cached files, partial downloads, encrypted folders he'd clearly tried to delete in a hurry. One folder was labeled simply OBS. Inside were video files. The first video showed my brother sitting at his desk, recording himself. He looked exhausted, eyes red, voice trembling as he explained that he'd been invited into a private dark web community. He said it started with live-streamed challenges, supposedly fake, meant to test fear responses. Viewers voted. Participants earned money. It sounded like a scam until he said the challenges followed him offline. In the second video, he described being followed. Random knocks at the door, phones ringing with no one on the line, emails describing his day in unsettling detail. He said once you accepted the invitation, backing out wasn't allowed. The third video was worse. He was whispering, lights off, recording from under his desk. He said they'd sent him an address, a place where he was supposed to go if he wanted it to stop. He kept saying he hadn't told them where he lived, but somehow they knew. I felt sick. I accessed the Tor browser he'd hidden on the system and found a bookmarked page. The site was still active. A simple interface with a countdown timer at the top. No explanation. Beneath it was a chat window filled with scrolling comments from anonymous users. They were talking about my brother in past tense. Someone typed, "Subject compliance delayed." Another replied, "Family interference detected." My blood ran cold. I typed into the chat, demanding to know where he was. The chat paused for a moment, then a message appeared highlighted in red. He chose to continue. A video feed opened automatically. It showed a dark room illuminated by a single hanging bulb. The camera shook slightly, like it was handheld. My brother was sitting on the floor, wrists bound, breathing hard. He looked straight into the camera, eyes wide, panic etched into every line of his face. "I told him not to involve you," he said, voice breaking. A shadow moved behind him, tall and indistinct. A hand rested on his shoulder. The chat exploded with messages, moving too fast to read. Emojis. Numbers, votes. I screamed at the screen, pounding on the keyboard, begging them to stop. The man behind the camera laughed softly. Observation complete. A voice said calmly, "Thank you for participating." The feed cut out. The site went dark. The police never found my brother. No body. No leads. Just an unsolved case and a room that felt emptier than silence. Sometimes, late at night, my phone buzzes with unknown notifications. No message content. Just a preview window showing a countdown timer. I don't open them, but I know what they're waiting for. I used to work nights at a small data recovery lab, the kind that handled damaged hard drives, corrupted servers, and devices pulled from fires or floods. Most of our clients were businesses, but every so often, law enforcement would bring something in quietly, without paperwork or explanation. Those jobs always paid well, and we were told not to ask questions. One night, just before closing, a plain black case was dropped off by a man who refused to give his name. He only said the drive inside had been seized during an investigation and that the contents were time sensitive. I signed the intake form and watched him leave without another word. The drive itself was old, scratched, and clearly abused. It took hours to stabilize it enough to extract the data. By the time files started appearing on my monitor, it was close to midnight, and I was alone in the building. At first, it looked like junk, fragmented folders, corrupted video files. Then I found a directory simply titled Live. Inside were dozens of text files and a handful of video streams that shouldn't have worked. They weren't recordings. They were active feeds, still pulling data. I clicked one. The screen filled with a dim room I immediately recognized as a basement. Not because it was familiar, but because it looked like every unfinished basement I'd ever been in. Concrete walls, exposed beams, a drain in the floor. There was someone sitting in a chair facing away from the camera. A chat window popped up beside the feed. The messages weren't scrolling fast. They were slow, deliberate. People discussing what should happen next, like they were planning a move in a board game. Ask him again. Turn the light off. Make him listen. My hands hovered over the mouse. I told myself this was evidence that law enforcement needed this recovered. But deep down, I knew I shouldn't be watching. The person in the chair started shaking. A voice off camera spoke calmly, asking questions I couldn't hear. The person responded in broken sentences, apologizing, promising cooperation. The chat reacted positively to fear, negatively to defiance. It was horrifying how structured it all was. I tried to disconnect the feed. It wouldn't close. Instead, a system message appeared. New observer detected. The chat paused. Then dozens of messages appeared at once. Who's that? Another one? Is this live? My workstation lights flickered. The hum of the server rack deepened, vibrating through the desk. A new window opened automatically. It was my webcam. I watched myself on screen, pale and frozen, eyes darting between monitors. The chat shifted focus instantly. Better camera angle. He looks nervous. I ask him something. A message appeared over the video feed. Say something. I don't know why I did it. Maybe shock. Maybe fear. Maybe the instinct to comply. I'm just fixing the drive, I said quietly. I don't know what this is. The basement feed changed. The chair was empty. Footsteps echoed, slow and heavy, growing louder. The camera turned slightly, as if someone behind it had adjusted their grip. You're already part of it, the voice said through my speakers. You recovered the signal. Every feed went black at once. I yanked the power cable from the wall and ran out of the lab without locking the door. I didn't go home. I drove until sunrise and slept in my car at a rest stop. The next day, the lab called me. They said the black case was gone. No sign of forced entry. No record of it ever being logged. I quit that week. I don't work in data recovery anymore. I don't repair drives. I don't plug in devices that don't belong to me. But sometimes, when my laptop fan kicks on late at night for no reason, I swear I hear the same calm voice whisper through the static, reminding me that once a signal is restored, it never truly disappears. I thought I was immune to this kind of thing. That's what I told myself anyway. I worked as a journalist for nearly a decade, mostly covering cybercrime and online extremism. I'd seen the worst corners of the internet, spoken to people who thrived in chaos, and stared at evidence that would have made most people quit on the spot. I believed distance and professionalism were enough to protect me. I was wrong. The story that pulled me in started as a tip from an anonymous source. No name, no contact info, just a message sent through an encrypted Dropbox I rarely used anymore. The subject line read, "They are live streaming consequences." I assumed it was exaggeration, someone trying to bait a reporter into chasing ghosts. But the message included a link and a short explanation. According to the sender, there was a dark website that didn't stream violence for shock value. It streamed aftermath, regret, fear, the moment people realized what they'd agreed to. I accessed the link from a secured machine in my office, layers of protection I'd trusted for years. The site itself was unnervingly clean. No gore, no ads, no clutter. Just a countdown timer at the top and a single video window beneath it. Below that was a disclaimer written in small text. This broadcast reflects voluntary participation. The timer hit 0. The video feed came to life, showing a man sitting alone in a hotel room. He looked ordinary. Middle-aged, business casual, wedding ring still on his finger. He stared at the door like he expected someone to burst through it at any moment. A calm voice off camera asked him to explain why he was there. He hesitated, then admitted he'd been paid to moderate a private forum. He said he thought it was just roleplay, dark fiction. He didn't realize the people posting were real, that the things being described were actually happening. His voice cracked when he said he'd enforced the rules anyway. Deleted posts that got too emotional. Banned users who begged for help. The voice thanked him for his honesty. The feed ended without resolution. I waited for something else to happen, but instead the page refreshed. A new countdown appeared. Another stream queued up. I watched 3 more that night. Different people. Same format. Same detached tone. Every one of them had been involved somehow. Moderators. Coders. Payment processors. None of them were the original perpetrators. They were infrastructure. Support systems. People who told themselves they were just doing a job. I started taking notes. Over the next week, I dug deeper, mapping the site's mirrors, tracing its connections. Every lead dead ended. Whoever built it knew exactly how to stay invisible. But something else bothered me more than the technical mystery: the timing. Each stream went live exactly when someone started researching the site seriously, not when they logged in, when they began to understand it. That's when the emails started. They weren't threatening. They were polite, thanking me for my interest. complimenting my past work, correcting small factual errors in drafts I hadn't published yet. One message ended with, "Accuracy matters. You understand that." I stopped working from home. One night, as I reviewed my notes in the office, the site went live without me clicking anything. A familiar countdown began. My stomach twisted when I realized I recognized the room on screen. It was my office. The camera angle was wrong, positioned behind my desk, slightly elevated. I watched myself on the feed, hunched over papers, rubbing my temples in exhaustion. The voice spoke, the same calm cadence I'd heard in every stream. "Tell us why you kept watching." I didn't answer. I couldn't. The voice didn't press. It just continued narrating details about my career, my motivations, the compromises I'd made for access, for relevance, for stories that would land harder. None of it was inaccurate. "You believed exposure was enough," the voice said. "That watching without intervening absolved you." The chat window appeared for the first time since I'd been watching the site. It wasn't full of cheering or cruelty, just short assessments. Self-aware, still rationalizing. Recede. The feed switched. Now I was seeing my apartment. Empty. Dark. Then the front door opened. I stood up so fast my chair toppled over. I ran out of the office, heart pounding, calling my partner's phone again and again. No answer. When I reached my building, the door to my apartment was ajar. Inside, everything was untouched. No signs of struggle. No missing items. Just a laptop sitting open on the kitchen table, screen glowing. The site was pulled up. A new stream was queued. The title wasn't a timestamp this time. It was my name. I didn't watch it live. I closed the laptop and left it there, screen still glowing, timer counting down without me. I walked out and didn't look back. I never published the story. I never explained why I quit journalism overnight. I let people assume burnout, ethics, fear. Maybe it was all of those things. Sometimes, late at night, I wonder what happened when that timer reached zero. Whether the stream went on without me. Whether the site needs you to watch for it to work, or if it simply records the moment you finally understand that looking away doesn't undo what you've already seen. I don't go looking for answers anymore, because the dark web doesn't punish curiosity. It punishes participation, and the line between the two is thinner than anyone wants to admit.